The first time I saw the notice taped to my garage door, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just another parking violation or a petty complaint from a neighbor. It was from my HOA, and it had the power to ruin me. Immediate action required. Unauthorized garage modifications must be removed within 7 days, or fines will commence. My garage, the place I'd poured thousands of hours and dollars into building the ultimate workspace, was suddenly a target. The thought of losing it felt like a personal attack on everything I'd built. I immediately tried to call the HOA president. Mrs. Clayton, her voice, sharp and cold over the phone, made it clear this wasn't a misunderstanding. "You will remove the garage extension immediately, or we will take legal action," she said, as if we were negotiating over a parking space rather than someone's life work. It was in that moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with a neighborhood committee. I was up against an institution that thrived on intimidation, fine print rules, and fear. I spent that night pacing, thinking about every possible way to comply, fight back, or at least stall them. Every scenario ended the same way: my garage gone, my projects destroyed, and me left with nothing but regret. But as I stared at the notice the next morning, a thought hit me. They don't know me. They don't know how far I'll go. The garage had been more than a storage space. It was my sanctuary, the place where I built furniture for friends, restored classic cars, and even taught neighborhood kids how to use tools safely. The thought of losing it wasn't just a financial hit. It was a personal violation. So I decided, right then and there, I wasn't giving in. Not to vague rules, not to threats, and definitely not to fear. I began documenting everything. Photos of the garage as it had been for years, receipts for materials, permits I had already filed but that somehow didn't exist in their system. I even recorded our interactions with the HOA, knowing that every word could become crucial if this turned into a legal battle. I wasn't just preparing to fight, I was preparing to win. By the end of that week, the HOA thought they had me cornered. But what they didn't realize was that cornered people can strike back in ways no one expects. And strike back I did, but it wasn't just about yelling or filing complaints. I needed a strategy that would make them regret ever threatening me. Before I reveal exactly how I did it, you need to understand just how ruthless the HOA was. This wasn't about community standards. It was about control. And I was about to show them that you can't bully someone who's willing to fight smart. After that first terrifying week, I realized that fear alone wasn't going to protect my garage. The HOA had rules, yes, but rules have loopholes, and loopholes are where strategy thrives. My first step was research. I dug through my city's building codes, HOA bylaws, and even old meeting minutes I found online. The more I read, the more I realized the HOA's threat wasn't just aggressive, it was legally shaky. They were banking on most people not knowing their rights, on people panicking and dismantling their property without a fight. Armed with knowledge, I made a plan. Step 1. Document every single aspect of my garage and property. Step 2. Establish communication that was professional, recorded, and undeniable. I sent emails citing specific codes and permits that supported my case, attaching photos and documentation, proving every modification had been approved, or at least didn't violate any enforceable rules. And every time they tried to intimidate me, I responded calmly, citing exact regulations. It wasn't personal. It was tactical. But knowledge alone wouldn't stop them from trying to bully me in person. So I prepared for that too. I invested in cameras, signs, and even a small motion-activated light system around the garage. Not because I expected vandalism, but because I wanted a record if they ever crossed the line. Every step I took was about accountability. I knew that once they realized I wasn't afraid to fight back, they might hesitate, and hesitation is where leverage begins. The real turning point came when the HOA president sent a representative to inspect my garage. She had this smug confidence, like victory was guaranteed. But I was ready. I had my paperwork organized, my cameras rolling, and my composure intact. Every claim they made, I countered with evidence, receipts, permits, photos. And when they tried to claim a minor technical violation, I calmly explained why it was irrelevant, citing legal precedent and city ordinances. By the time the inspection ended, the representative looked frustrated, almost shaken. But I wasn't done. I knew the HOA would try to escalate, so I scheduled a meeting with the board, inviting them to review the documentation in full view of a legal advisor. I consulted briefly. The tactic was simple: transparency, confidence, and accountability. I wasn't just defending my garage, I was turning the tables, showing them that bullying someone informed and prepared is a losing game. By the end of that meeting, I could tell the HOA realized they had underestimated me. Their usual tone of control was gone, replaced with hesitant questions and forced smiles. And that hesitation? That hesitation was my advantage. I had stopped being a target and started becoming a problem they couldn't solve easily. After weeks of careful preparation, research, and calculated moves, it was finally time for the HOA to realize that I wasn't someone they could intimidate. Their threats had lost their power the moment I started documenting, presenting evidence, and responding calmly instead of reacting in panic. But I knew I needed one decisive action to make it clear. I wouldn't just defend my garage, I would make it impossible for them to threaten me again. It started with a formal letter. I laid out every step I had taken to comply with codes, every permit filed, and every rule they claimed I violated. I attached photos, receipts, and even video timestamps of every modification I had made. I ended the letter with a firm statement. Any further threats or attempts to enforce non-existent violations will be considered harassment and dealt with accordingly. Sending that letter felt empowering. For the first time, I wasn't on the defensive, I was calling the shots. The next move was public accountability. I contacted a few neighbors who had witnessed the garage modifications and knew about my interactions with the HOA. Their support was crucial. When the HOA realized that the dispute wasn't just private, but visible to the community, their confidence wavered. People began asking questions at board meetings. And suddenly the narrative wasn't just about a rule violation, it was about fairness, transparency, and the HOA overstepping its authority. Then came the day they tried to issue a fine in person. I met them outside, calmly holding my organized documentation. Their usual air of superiority faltered when I started referencing city codes, bylaws, and even case law. They could feel they were in a losing battle. I wasn't angry. I was precise, factual, and unwavering. Every claim they made was met with evidence, and every attempt to intimidate me was neutralized. By the end of the confrontation, the HOA didn't just back down, they retreated. No fines, no demands, no more threats. My garage remained intact, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of what preparation, knowledge, and confidence could do. I had transformed fear into strategy, intimidation into leverage, and rules into protection. I learned something invaluable. Standing your ground isn't about aggression. It's about understanding your rights, documenting everything, and never letting fear dictate your actions. The HOA thought they were untouchable, but I proved that being informed, calm, and strategic is far more powerful than empty threats. Tomorrow, I'll share exactly how I ensured they could never target me or my garage again, and what anyone in a similar situation can do to win without losing their mind or their property. After the HOA backed down, I knew my fight wasn't just about winning, it was about ensuring they could never target me again. A victory that can't be repeated is fragile, and I didn't want to leave my garage or peace of mind vulnerable. The next step was proactive, creating a system that combined legal protection, documentation, and community awareness. First, I formalized everything. I compiled a complete file of all permits, correspondence, photos, and records of HOA interactions. This wasn't just for me, it was for anyone who might question my actions or for future disputes. Having a single, organized record made it nearly impossible for the HOA to fabricate claims. I even had a lawyer review the file to ensure every angle was covered. This small investment of time and money turned potential vulnerability into an impenetrable defense. Next, I leveraged community support. I shared my experience with neighbors who had quietly watched the HOA's tactics for years. Some were intimidated, others were unaware they had rights. By explaining the situation and showing how knowledge and preparation could protect personal property, I turned my challenge into a lesson for others. Suddenly, I wasn't just defending a garage, I was setting a precedent for accountability and transparency. I also implemented preventative measures, motion-activated cameras, clear signage about private property, and regular maintenance checks on permits and modifications ensured that no HOA attempt could be misrepresented. These actions weren't aggressive, they were practical, and they communicated one thing clearly. Any further intimidation would be met with evidence-backed resistance. But the most important victory wasn't legal or technical, it was mental. I no longer feared the HOA. The anxiety that had kept me up at night was gone. I had learned that fear only has power when you let it. By taking control, preparing thoroughly, and responding strategically, I turned a nightmare scenario into a manageable, even empowering experience. Looking back, I realized the battle had taught me more than I expected. It wasn't about defying authority for the sake of rebellion. It was about understanding systems, leveraging facts over fear, and standing firm when others hope you'll cave. That mindset is transferable to any dispute, any intimidation tactic, any challenge that feels insurmountable. Today, my garage is intact, fully functional, and a symbol of perseverance. But the real win isn't the structure. It's the confidence I now carry and the example I set for others facing similar threats. I refused to let an overbearing HOA dictate my life. And in the process, I turned intimidation into empowerment. If you ever find yourself in a situation where rules are being weaponized against you, remember, knowledge, preparation, and calm persistence are your most powerful tools. And if you apply them carefully, you can win, not just for yourself, but in a way that ensures it lasts. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more epic HOA battles, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Drop a like if you love seeing someone stand up to unfair rules, and comment below with your craziest HOA or neighbor story. I might feature it in the next video.